Attention, all you fishes in the sea. Welcome to the Fisch Bowl with Sam Fish.
I mean, talking about Siouxsie and the Banshees, one of my all-time favorite gothic punk rock bands, and I definitely wanted to ask you about some stories from the times of Siouxsie and the Banshees and the Batcave, and I mean, there's again, like I know, I'm like we could probably spend numerous episodes talking about
Yeah.
like experiences.
Well, I mean, I guess I first met those guys at the Batcave when we opened it because, I mean, we only ever opened the Batcave because we just wanted a club to play at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was no there was no idea about creating, a club empire or anything. Well, there was no master plan. It was just like, there was nowhere to play in London at the time, and we had a few, Ollie, the singer in the band, was kind of good at setting stuff up and getting people motivated. And so we just kind of did it. And we just signed a publishing deal, actually. And the publishers, and that was from a self-promoted gig, yeah. And the publishers we had, they had the lease of Trident Studios, which is that's the studio where they recorded the early Queen stuff. They recorded Iggy, Aladdin Sane, Transformer was recorded there. It's right in the heart of Soho, London, just around the corner from where the Marquee was at the time. So it's an amazing place to be. Because we were hanging out there quite a lot, we'd met some people that were running a live promotion company from there. And we were chatting with them, and just the idea of doing the weekly club kind of came up. So, yeah, we just kind of found a guy that had a license on A Good Place, which was an old burlesque club from, what was it, 1927, I think that place had been open to. And so we just started doing Wednesday nights there. So because Soho was really just where everyone was hanging out, a lot of music, artists and stuff would be hanging out there anyway, or the record companies were there, or the publishing companies were there. So midweek, when you didn't have the weekend idiots around, it was just the perfect place to kind of hang out. And the Banshees ended up being kind of pretty much, regulars. So when they'd fired a guitar player, my name just ended up on a list of people to audition. So I had to stand in line next to the other guys. It was quite funny. Apparently, the kid that came out of the room as a really young kid was auditioning before me. And apparently Sue had just gone up to him and pulled the jack plug out of his guitar, said, "Next." That is, but yeah, I remember we had our first week of rehearsing, and oh god, then we went out for a night out in a club in London, and oh god, Sue and Budgie were pretty much dry at that point. They were going down to the gym and being super healthy, but everyone was having a drink that night to celebrate. And who was that guy? There was Boy George's friend Fat Tony. He's quite a well-known DJ in London. And I think we walked into the London Limelight Club, into the VIP section, and Siouxsie was given this roped-off area that was this guy DJ Fat Tony's. It was his area for his birthday. He was off in the toilets doing loads of cocaine with other people. And then apparently his boyfriend turns up and starts fawning all over Siouxsie. Oh. So when he comes back, he gets really angry. He's just coked up saying, blah, 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 you're an old has-been anyway, blah, 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 really insulting her. And then turns around, goes to walk off, and Siouxsie just goes, "Oh, you!" And he turns around. I had to jump in and help. There's a few of us had to jump in and try and break that one up. But that was my first night out ever with the Banshees. We'd picked up our wives and bits and partners on the way down. So it was just like, oh, this is my new job. Well, not that it was ever a job. But, it was, welcome to the what what was it, Budgie? Yeah, Budgie said something once. They told me that I got the job at Welcome Aboard, but it did sound like kind of a warning about stormy waters. The interesting thing about the Banshees, though, was well, an interesting thing was the first manager that they had, because I saw three managers come and go in my tenure with them. But the first manager, he had been a booking agent, club, a promoter. So doing live shows, they were really adept at making a good business out of that. So they played a lot. They played in really interesting places as well. So they were the first English band into Argentina after the Falklands War. And
Oh, wow.
God, I mean, we went into Slovenia as the first date of one tour. Was it like less than a week before the war was supposedly ended? So you didn't really know if you were going to end up hitting kind of
Right.
armed problems along the way. I remember talking to like the agent on that tour, saying, "Look, what the fuck are you doing, driving three articulated trucks into a war zone?" You know, and the agent, he was there with his video camera going, "Oh, I'll be fine. Just make some tank noises and rocket noises for my film." So yeah, and actually the first tour that we did with them was really interesting. We did a couple of shows on the Bowie Glass Spider tour which is the Dodgers Stadium, Anaheim, in Orange County, that I do believe
Right.
has been demolished since.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite sad to see. There's a few places that we played with the Banshees that were demolished, and with the Bowie connection. So there's that one. The Universal Amphitheatre was the other one as well, which I played that a few times with them. I loved that because and I never realised till later on that that was where they filmed a lot of the Cracked Actor Bowie documentary. Was the universe? You see
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because it didn't have a roof on at that point. They were filming Bowie there, so you assume it's probably at the Hollywood Bowl, but it's actually the Universal Amphitheatre. And it's only when I go back and see some of the backstage footage, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, it was, yeah, no, really interesting. So we did play really interesting places. I think the first gig that I played with the Banshees ever was mad. It was a Hitler Youth Amphitheatre next to the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. So to get to the stage, you had to walk. There's a little hill with trees all on it, with a tunnel going through it that zigzagged, so that snipers couldn't shoot down it. And
Wow.
I've seen videos since of like Rammstein playing there. But so we turned up to that, and the second on the bill supporting us, playing before us, was Iggy Pop. I was just
Oh,
like,
my
that was
God.
mind blowing experience, because I was such well, still am a huge Iggy Pop fan.
Same here.
And
Same.
I've got and in that band, because what was it? They were doing Sister Midnight, and they had Barry Adamson from Magazine and Nick Cave Bagseeds on bass doing Sister Midnight. It was bloody
Oh, my
amazing.
God.
So that it was a bit confusing world to suddenly step into,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I suppose the other big one with the Banshees would have been us being on the 1991, the first Lollapalooza tour.
Yes. I had definitely had some questions about that memorable experiences. Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, which was weird, because I guess I knew about Nine Inch Nails at that time, but it was weird seeing them playing at lunchtime in the daylight with all this smoke and smashing their gear up and stuff. And and what was it? I think because they used to buy a load of cheap guitars in every town, and the road crew would spray paint them up and stuff, and then they'd smash them up. I think before the end of that tour, that they left the tour, I don't know, a week or so, but a week or two before the end of the tour to go to Europe. So a support gig with Guns N' Roses, who were huge at that point in Europe. But I don't think they had a good time on that. But anyways, at the last gig in America, they'd sent a memo out to the other band saying, "Oh," they had a list of people that got them on, come on stage and smash a guitar up with us. It'll be great fun. And Dave Navarro was one of those guys, and I was kind of friends with Dave on that tour, and he just bought a video camera and he's like, John, can you video this for me? It'll be great, And I thought, yeah. So everyone's coming on stage, grabbing a guitar, there's your rack full of $50 guitars. And I saw one of Ice-T and Body Count. He had all the guy in the LA Raiders gear.
Mm-hmm.
The guy must have been like 2 meters tall. It was like enormous dude. And I'm kind of looking through the viewfinder. I thought, oh yeah, let's follow him. Yeah. And I don't know, unless I'm going completely senile, I'm sure that what I saw was him walk past the $50 rack and pick up a vintage Gibson Explorer and turn it into matchwood. But yeah, it was just, there was a pretty crazy tour. Anyways, like all around. What was the other funny one I saw? The Butthole Surfers were on that tour.
Yes.
And I went out front to see them when we got to, where was it? I think that it's amazing. I can remember where things happened on that tour. I think that, so this would have been what, Toronto, some big stadium, Toronto. And so Gibby used to come on, and one of his first things, he used to come on with his shotgun and smash a bottle of Jack Daniels on his head, which you didn't find out till later was a wax movie prop,
Right.
But I remember there were all these girls at the front going, Gibby, can't take the piss. And he took his socks off, and this must be less than a month into the tour. So it probably is 4 weeks he's been wearing those socks.
Oh my!
Throws them into the audience, and the audience just went, it's like the passing of the Red Sea. So when I first met him, when someone dragged me to their changing room because it was right next to the stage. I remember he came in and said, "Hey, hi there. How many people have you never seen before in your fucking life in your dressing room? My name's Gibby. Meet my wart." As he's shaking my hand, showing me his wart, and then tells me, "I'm seeding right now." So he was this kind of bonkers guy, yeah, like really nutty. But then one night, I accidentally ended up in a car with him and one of the girls from Geffen Records. I think it was maybe driving back from Shoreline up to San Francisco. So in a motor for an hour or whatever. So, and I'm with the guy with the socks and the shotgun and the Jack Daniels bottles with the seeding wart. And he's chatting to the girl from the label. And it's just like he's talking about, American radio science and promotion. And it's just like, hang on, it's just the same guy. And he just sounds like a record company employee. I guess he did tour management when he wasn't working with the Buttholes and stuff.
Right.
But I was amazed that suddenly he just clicked, and it was like Jekyll and Hyde. He just kind of turned into this, like, yeah, super switched on kind of academic guy that knows what's happening. It was that, yeah, really not what I expected.
Well, all the bands you just listed, that's like my era. That's like my childhood.
Mm.
You know, I remember the '90s vividly, and like the movies, the music, the vibe. Like it was like literally party decade, and some a little too much, unfortunately, but
Well, part of the apprenticeship, isn't it?
right. comes with the territory. But I mean, first of all, you mentioned Dave Navarro, Jane's Addiction, one of my all time favorite.
Well, psychedelic, isn't it? I guess.
It is, but it's also like they're so much more. Like you can't even really like fit them into one specific genre because so some tracks are more alternative, some are psychedelic, some are like literally klezmer, you know.
Yeah.
It's like some are, I guess could be considered more proggy. But there's like there's mellowness in it. Like they're all over the place. And Navarro, one of my favorite guitarists from the like that era.
Yeah,
And I've seen Jane's Addiction every single time they came to Pittsburgh, where actually Trent Reznor's from, Nine Inch Nails.
it's from Pittsburgh,
Yes,
right?
yes. I think the last time he played here, though, for whatever reason, he didn't get a good response. So he
And
always
Trent,
goes.
wow,
Apparently, I don't know why, but apparently he skips Pittsburgh, his hometown, and goes to Philly, where I like. Listen, I'm not really a sports person, but I know Pittsburgh being a big sports town with the Steelers and the Penguins, not so much the Pirates anymore, but still, like, definitely the Penguins, definitely the Steelers. And with the Steelers and the Eagles, there's a big rivalry. Now, I don't really care too much about that. Sports peoples can have that beef. My beef with Philly is that they take the better shows from Pittsburgh.
right,
Like all the bands that I really really want to see always seem to skip Pittsburgh. Like they'll go to the trend I see is they go to Columbus or Cleveland, and then they go to Philly. They totally
right,
skip Pittsburgh, and I'm like, why? You know, like
yeah,
there's been so many good shows with artists that like, and I mean, I could see driving like, an hour or something, but like Philly from Pittsburgh to Philly, that's like, you need to like stay overnight, you know,
yeah, yeah,
unless you're doing cocaine.
yeah, yeah. Something that means you can drive like that.
You know, you know, uh, I'm not condoning that, but you know, you need some amphetamines or something to get you through, because otherwise you need to spend the night. But I mean, the Gorillas played there. Blur, the lead singer from Blur. So, like every band seems to go there and just like skips Pittsburgh altogether. I'm like, Pittsburgh still gets good shows, but Philly by far gets the better ones. Like
Right.
the best of the best go there. So maybe if I get some swing here in the city with the booking agencies, I'll have a talk with them and be like, "Excuse me, I know Jon Klein from Siouxsie and the Banshees. I got some swing. I know these bands. Like people want to see the shows. You know, give the people what they want."
Well, good luck.
But that's just my personal observation. But the
Mm,
Butthole Surfers, another one of my. I mean, I wish I could have seen them live. Talk about like a hell of a live performance. Body Count, Ice-T, another one of
yeah,
my
yeah.
all-time favorite bands from that era. I mean, I love Ice-T. I love his rap stuff, but when he went with Body Count, now
That
that
was actually, and on that tour, because you had, I was a bit pissed off because, like, the Banshees were kind of, everyone else was allowed to have proper big guitars right out front, whereas the Banshees at that point were a bit more kind of pulled in and kind of, it wasn't so visceral. But that the riff that everyone was playing on that tour was a body count. What was that? There goes the neighborhood.
yeah,
You could hear it coming out of dressing rooms as you walk through the compound. It was really funny.
their first album. I mean, that it's a hell of an album.
Hmm.
Hell of an album. I mean, the track that what's it called? Like I forget the actual name of the track, but it's like it's the opening track to Body Count.
Right.
Body Count's in the house. That's what it is. Body
Okay.
Count's in the house. Hearing that, and I remember because I'm also a big like basically the cast of the Expendables are like my heroes. So like I remember watching Universal Soldier when that came out, and at the end of the movie they play Body Counts in the House, and it just is like the perfect kind of like jam to just with so many movies in the 90s, especially the action movies, you know, just even like comedies and dramas and just this cinema in general in the 90s was like with the music scene, and the going on simultaneously, some of the best soundtracks to come out of a decade, you know, and also the band specifically doing, songs for soundtracks for the films.
Yeah,
I mean that's like a big thing, I guess, then that has turned into a whole, I guess, contract deal now, especially with like the James Bond movies.
yeah. Well, interesting one in that part, I suppose, is what is Nine Inch Nails with Trent and Atticus.
Yes.
Because I mean, their stuff was. I think one of the first ones I saw was what was it? It was the American remake of Dragon Tattoo. They did a Zeppelin cover on the front end of that. But I tell you what really sold me on them was that Netflix Vietnam series that they curated the soundtrack on as well as making stuff for. It was really, really good. I mean,
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
mm,
And I was even going to say Trent Reznor and Atticus, they're the new like Tangerine Dream, Vangelis,
yeah,
like
yeah,
the musician, the Hans Zimmer, you know, that were musicians that had a you know hell of a run, but just found that like with the way the industry is kind of like, turned into, at least mainstream wise, it's not really about like, again, artistic freedom. It's about like what can we, you know, and package it and, you know, sell it and in mass quantities, And I think Trent Reznor even said something in an interview not that long ago about how his personal belief on the current state of music is that it sucks. Which, I mean, yes and no.
yeah,
I'm like, usually, in most cases, the mainstream is, yeah, shit, you know, but where the mainstream is shit, that's where the underground thrives,
of course.
and it's only a matter of time before the underground becomes mainstream, you know, and that's my personal belief based on, the entire history going from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to where we're at now. I kind of, and just everything we talked about, I guess the first hour of our chat here was all the awesome music that is out there, both in the States and in the EU and UK and even Scotland and Ireland has some fantastic music right now. There's band, and even on the topic of grunge, this is a totally new genre that I see forming in like a big way, that's actually developed its own subgenre name called new wave grunge. And it's like there was grunge, then there was post grunge, which was like Creed and Nickelback and, you know, basically the record industry is trying to capitalize on guys who sound like, oh,
Yeah, who's that? There was that English band that were part of that as well. What's his name? Gavin Rossdale.
Bush, Bush.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
you say that's post grunge?
No, I would consider them grunge.
That
Uh,
was well
yeah,
because of
they
the
they were
pronounced
90s. Yeah, I remember listening
right,
to Bush growing up in the 90s. They're grunge.
right.
Um, Post grunge would be 2000s kind
So
of,
Nickelback, you say, yeah.
yeah, Nickelback, Creed, those are the two big ones that stand out to me. That would be post grunge. It's like they're trying to sound like the bands from the 90s, but it's like not anywhere near the par. It's like you can tell the sound is old. It's like more studio produced, like the edginess is gone, and and then like it kind of died after that. And new wave grunge though is like bands, kids that are in like their mid to late 20s, and they grew up, pretty much like in the late 90s, 2000s, listening to all the stuff from the 90s, and basically have fused all these different sounds into like new music. The one from Ireland that I interviewed, they're called Strangers with Guns. They are one hell of a band.
Right.
Three-piece set, and they sound like a mixture of Black Flag, the Melvins, Alice in Chains, and they actually just, I think either earlier this year or towards the end of last year, released like a redux of like remix or redux of like their original debut album, and they actually have Henry Rollins and Cuss helping out on tracks.
Right.
And their second album, they have a song. In my opinion, it's the best song on the album. I forget the exact title, but it's like something like "My name is Henry Rollins," yeah, something like that.
Right.
Awesome, awesome band. They're even like kind of metal-esque, but they sound like a fusion of like all the sludge metal like
Mhm.
bands from the 90s. One from the UK that's huge now. I think they actually won a Grammy with their first debut album, Wet Leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're huge now. Band from Australia that's just blowing up. They actually just played with the Foo Fighters down there, down under. Was they're called the Full Flower Moon Band.
Right. Oh.
And the other thing I was going to say that I see like a huge trend kind of emerging is female. It's either all female bands, like bandmates, playing rock, or it's like female vocalists backed by guys, or like half and half, but it's female vocalists, and the female like vocalists are like the main kind of like writers, artists in of the bands. I see like a big kind of like emerging thing in like rock, shoegaze, just like the all the subgenres of rock. I see much like Siouxsie and the Banshees, like the huge surge and rise of female musicians, whether as like a whole piece set or half and half, or like a girl backed by all guys, as
Yeah.
like a new kind of like emerging trend. And all the music that all those bands are making together are phenomenal.
Lots of good stuff to keep an eye open for, or an ear open for.
Yeah, and you're out for it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I got you hooked.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, most definitely. Well, it's easy to say, nah, music's shit these days, but my God, there's so much being made, you know. It's, yeah. And I guess, I mean, well, a lot of people kind of cling to their own music, and it is kind of curious. What feels like part of life's journey is you do revisit places and music. You always kind of touch base with your initial kind of influences, anyways.
Right, right.
Just because that's what they are. If they're just part of that very primal initial impulse to want to make a noise or to be attracted to kind of music. But then I suppose that glues itself to you at a certain age, which is why a lot of people then become very possessive about the music that they liked. Or yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's also like I, I, I'm also like a big conspiracy theorist, especially with music and film. And it's, I mean, I don't consider myself like one of the zombies. I like to enjoy what I listen to like not just one thing, but like variety and all the subgenres of things. Especially if I like something, I want to hear that as much of it as I can hear, as many different bands that make that type of genre of music, and then I want to learn about the subgenres and listen to those bands and, do the same thing over and over. Same
Mm.
thing with film. If I find a genre of film or a director or a writer or a producer, or a team that, was involved with making certain types of films, whether it's horror, sci-fi, action, drama, comedy, whatever, I like to really, research those people and those actors, writers, musicians, like whatever, and then like, you know, like really learn about the craft and the music, the film, the writing, like everything that goes into, arts and entertainment. And those are the people that like I admire, I look up to, and I look as like inspirations for me, whether it's in, what I like, how I think, you know, what I like to watch, And I mean, definitely as you get older, and I'm starting to experience this now with like how everything is like a reboot and a remake, and I'm now at the age where like I'm starting to see stuff that like I'm like, but why are they making that? Like, it's not even like, then I think to myself, well, I guess it is like 20 years,
Well, they haven't
since.
got that film with mobile phones in it. Yeah, they need a version with
Right.
smartphones in it.
Right. And that's like the only thing that newer movies like, from the 2000s on, with cell phones, it's like that's what keeps them dated,
Yeah,
is the phones and the technology, before like movies from like the 80s where it was like sci-fi stuff, like, like, like you look at The Running Man with like Schwarzenegger,
yeah.
and you look at some of the stuff in there and it's like, it's all dated, but like that was, high tech stuff of the time, and there's certain movies that like still are like forever timeless, even though like, times have obviously moved on. For instance, I'll say Terminator 2.
Yeah,
I'll say Terminator 2 Judgment Day still holds up
yeah,
to
yeah.
this day. Jurassic Park, the first one.
Yeah.
Still holds up to this day. And there's a few other ones,
Well, Blade Runner, you were
Blade
saying.
Runner. Yeah, I was just gonna say Blade Runner
Well, the
still
interesting
holds
thing
up.
with Blade Runner is it's when I bought the box set years ago, it came with a DVD just on the production stuff, on the model making, and
Hmm.
that whole side, because that one was what generally seen as the high watermark of physically constructed
Right.
special effects, pre CGI. And oh my God, it's insane. It's really
Yeah.
from them. I mean, have you ever seen, the title sequence of LA with,
Yes. Yeah.
have you ever seen pictures of that model?
I have. I have.
And that every explosion was a multiple exposure from one of the cameraman that had done a shoot, just filming flames that he already had. And And yeah, what other buildings were made out of spaceships that they stole from, like, the props department of Star Wars stuff or whatever. Or
Right.
and even what was it? One of the matte painters on that was a genius. There was something because, and I've seen some before and after of the matte painting where suddenly three-quarters of the frame is a matte painting done, on a
Right.
piece of
Right.
glass. But that guy was so good, apparently, that it was something like he could paint it the right wrong color so that you could actually they could actually step over another step in the processing. So I don't know. So one of the chemical processes of developing negs, this guy, the matte painter, knew he could paint the other color before I
Right, right, right,
realized
right. I know
that
what you're talking
possible
about.
negs.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
And
just like, what? Wow.
I just found this out that the whole monologue that Rutger Hauer says right
Oh yeah,
before he dies, that was like he came to Ridley Scott right
yeah,
before they were supposed to
yeah. The
shoot.
tears in the rain came
Yeah,
to
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a bit like what you were saying with Scorsese, and yeah, think how funny, isn't it?
Right.
He's just like, but I mean, Rutger Hauer kind of stole the movie with that line, didn't he?
He totally did. Also like it made the film like it was already. I mean, in my mind, like Blade Runner is more than just a film, a concept. It's literally a visual piece of art.
Yeah, yeah,
From the music, the score, from Vangelis to the way it was shot, to just everything in it, and that ending. One, it made the film so much more profound, with the concept of, where Roy Rutger Hauer's character, the whole purpose of them trying to find more life,
yeah,
more to live longer, which is really, I mean, isn't that what us as humans are pretty much doing right now? You
yeah,
know, whether it's through AI or, autonomous, robots or androids, whatever, or Musk with, I mean, he literally was at some summit or something, some thing, and he was asked a question about, do you think that we'll be able to, solve death? And Musk being Musk, pretty much like gave his answer, and it was like going on a pretty long rant about how he thinks we'd be able to, at some point, yes, definitely figure out how to solve death. But then he also, just for the record, right after he goes on a big long rant about how, yeah, we could probably conquer death, then he's like, but don't get me wrong, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to death being like, a thing, and I think there's a reason why, we, have a certain lifespan, but at the same time, I've gone to a bunch of retirement dinners with my dad, and I'm learning more and more that people are living longer,
yeah,
much much longer than expected, versus where we were 100 years ago.
yeah, sure.
So, it's like a kind of double-edged sword, where it's like the more medical, breakthroughs we have that can prolong life, will ultimately, I think it is kind of like inevitable that at some point we'll get to like technological advancement where if we can't like stop death altogether, we'd definitely be able to put people in suspended animation and like, keep them like what was that Christopher Nolan movie, Interstellar, you
Interstellar,
know,
yeah,
and also like it with like Alien, the Alien franchise, where they
yeah,
just went into suspended animation and
yeah,
they stayed the same age, and it was like they were the ticking time of life stopped, right where it was, and
mm.
you know it it'd be nice to think like that, but
There's a worry that the assholes will live forever, though, isn't it?
exactly that too, because that's where we're currently at right now.
Mm.
Too many assholes out there, uh,
Sadly, but yeah,
but I try not to get political. Uh,
yeah, no, completely keep away
you
from that.
know,
Actually, in terms of lifespan stuff, did you ever read, was it the Chinese trilogy, The Three Body Problem? Netflix made a show of one of them. This is a trilogy. It's really, really interesting story.
I have not, but I will definitely have to try and track that down.
Like the premise is that where it starts off with the Cultural Revolution, where this Chinese woman's dad is like a scientist, gets killed, and her revenge is to kind of let alien life forms know that there's life on Earth. So, well, it's a bit of a spoiler, but Earth ends up getting invaded, but the invaders aren't going to arrive for 250 years. It's such an interesting story. The science of it is quite mind bending. Yeah.
Sounds interesting. Very. I will. I'm a sucker for like alien, like, I mean, I'm really into that stuff just in general. Like,
I can't remember what year that was at. Sixin Liu, as you Lui, maybe his surname is, but Three Body Problem. Yeah.
Okay, I will definitely
It's a
track that
trilogy.
down. Okay, I will definitely track that down. It's right up my alley. I like stuff that, like, makes you think and like messes with your head. I guess
This
that's why
one, yeah, this one totally does.
that's why I like Philip K. Dick so much, who
Exactly.
wrote Blade
Yeah.
Runner, among other stuff. Because like my first R-rated movie was Total Recall at age 5. So
Yeah.
that thus my obsession with the Expendables.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are right about at time here. I think it's starting to get a little probably on the darker side. I can tell in the
Yeah.
UK there. Obviously, so much more we can talk
Of
about
course.
that I knew this was going to happen. We'd probably get a good 2 hours and then say, we have to stop some point. But John, I have a couple closer questions for you,
Yeah.
and
Go for it.
then we can wrap things up here. First one I wanted to ask you, any upcoming projects, other things to promote? And then the last question, and this is where it gets a little fishy. If you could be any fish or sea creature, what fish or sea creature would you be? And that's counts real, made up, mythological, dinosaurs, all anything's on the
Yeah.
table.
Give me a minute on that one. Well, in terms of what's coming, well, I've got this album that's just come out with Jar Wobble,
Hmm.
Automated Paradise, which has been very interesting project actually. I must have made almost half a dozen records with him kind of since the pandemic started. So, but this one it was never really a plan to make a record. Actually, we run a community music project together, so we're just running a lot of jam sessions and recording workshops. We're just making music regularly, and it is just kind of one that popped out, which is really interesting because I don't know. Something happens when you sign a contract and plan a record, and then you start writing it, and then you start recording it, and you start mixing it. It's a very structured kind of process. But we've just been kind of making music. It feels more like kind of what happens when you're actually in a band when you're young. You're just making music,
Right,
And
right.
Wobble came up with some really good lyrically. He's just been kind of really marking where we're at right now. Just the tech evolution and the anxieties and everything around
Hmm.
that. So it's quite curious actually. I mean, I didn't really feel drawn to kind of write lyrics this time around. Wobble seems to have it so well covered because he's so well read on philosophy and stuff that he'll always put some. He can be really like the East End working boy, like blah blah blah, really blunt, and can come across kind of really badass. But actually, there's a big sensitive side of him that really does see things from other places. So it's been good. I mean, talking about that place, because I suppose the album starts with someone in a spaceship fading away from an earth that's on fire, and with the last track it goes through a whole lot of post-punk rants and kind of, I suppose, or protest songs almost on there before landing in somewhere that reminds me of like kind of another green world, that kind of Eno-esque
Hmm.
space. But it's curious though documenting this whole tech thing. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day because I got into tech because of music, so I got in quite early. I had,
Right, right.
I was computer savvy. I had a laptop when it was really rare for people to have laptops. Yeah, you never saw people in cafes with laptops. You had to be, it was just that price of a bloody car to have a laptop at that point.
Hmm.
So then to suddenly watch how quickly the next generation comes
Right,
along,
right.
that's especially the babies that are brought up on iPads,
Oh
and all
yeah,
of,
oh yeah.
and so all of a sudden, you know, I kind of go, sometimes I really miss the tech that I had when I was younger, when it was computers that didn't upgrade themselves every bloody day, so the
Yes.
pro it was more like tools that you learn that were based on concepts that were out there in the real world, especially when it's audio. And then you learn the computer kind of the tech kind of aspects of that. But it wasn't upgraded every week and redesigned by a 12-year-old. It was like, because all of a sudden, I mean, I remember the first time I got a smartphone, it was because like I just decided I needed to learn how to swipe.
Yeah, yeah.
Because for me it was just like touch screens. Touch screens are great, but on the other hand, I don't know. If I'm a filmmaker, do I want a screen that's covered in fingerprints?
Right,
So I was
right.
never convinced that
Right,
that.
right.
But I remember a friend of mine in education. She still works at the Institute of Education at London University here, and when I was back at art school, which was around just after the millennium, she was coining the buzz phrase at that time was lifelong learning. That in the future, you won't go to university, learn your stuff, and then use it for a career. You will always have to
Yes.
continue learning, and I'd never heard of that before. Let alone AI. Oh my God! I mean, that was what 10 years ago, maybe. That I first started hearing the term AI. And
Right,
it's
right.
science fiction, isn't it? I remember, I think I was over in Sweden, and my friend's son was really bright in maths, so he was telling me about AI for a possible degree course that he was going to do, university course, and here it is.
I know. I mean, the fact that I use ChatGPT for, I like to say what you're supposed to use it for versus like, asking it stuff like, or like, you know, what type of guy should I date? What type of girl should I date? You
Yeah,
know, ChatGPT, tell me, am I pretty? ChatGPT, tell me, like, you know,
yeah,
like, like all this insanity. Like, I mean, and that is like real science fiction in itself. You
it
know,
is. We're back to Philip K. Dick, aren't we? Really,
right, right,
and it's kind of. I mean, I was kind of happy that John was writing about it. Sometimes I think, oh, it's a bit on the nose. Is it poetic? But actually, it's so big, and it is
exactly.
all. I mean, I was doing some work as a filmmaker. When was that? That's over 10 years ago. Jesus, maybe that's heading towards 15 years ago. But I was working for a Japanese production company, and there was at the London Business School, the director, she was a writer that had a hit book in Japan. And what was it called? The Shift. And it was just talking about with the oncoming tech, because that would have been by the year that the smartphone happened, what was going to
Right,
happen. How are your kids going to get like jobs? What do they need to study? You know, what is the terrain going to kind of look like in the future?
exactly.
So they had a think tanks going with government departments, with various business organizations and different stuff. And and yeah, it was a massive hit. The Japanese loved it. So I went out to film an interview with her, and it was really kind of curious. Well, she gave me a copy of her book, so I did read it. And in her book, at that point, they would kind of, their predictions. This is what 2010, 11. That one of their case studies or examples is a guy wakes up in South America, he plans his day with his personal organizer, and then he's gonna operate do a brain surgery on someone in Russia or China or somewhere. So he downloads his software that he rents by the minute, and it's an all before subscription model, you know.
Exactly.
And I remember thinking I was just sci-fi. And here we are, you
Yeah. Yeah,
know.
exactly. And even going back to another one of the most famous, brilliant filmmakers of all time, Stanley Kubrick, with talking about music and scores and conceptual films, Clockwork Orange,
Yeah,
2001, uh,
yeah.
you know,
I think Wobble was thinking about 2001 on the first track on this album that we've got, Automated Paradise. There's definitely a bit of Hal in there. But no, he doesn't do what Hal does in that film. But yeah,
I hope not. I hope not.
yeah.
Awesome,
So,
awesome.
so do you want your last question? What a sea creature?
Yes. If you could
Oh,
be a fish slash sea creature slash living, prehistoric, mythical, any type of sea dwelling creature, what sea creature would you be?
God, well, the one I had the biggest crush on was that. What was that film about the octopus? No, no, no. Oh, what was that film? No, an octopus. Jellyfish was it?
Jellyfish.
No, it was an octopus.
Octopus, okay.
It was. I think the film's called My Octopus Teacher. Let me just double check that. It's oh God, it's the most beautiful film. Yeah, My Octopus Teacher. I've heard some people that like come out against the film for very curious reasons, but there's a guy that makes friends with this creature
Hmm.
that's kind of almost like an alien life form. But yeah, if you get a chance to watch it, I'd be interested to hear your take on it.
I will definitely check. You said it's called what
My
again?
Octopus Teacher.
My Octopus Teacher. I will look that up and I will look up the trilogy of books that
Yeah, Three Body Problem, that's
Three
called.
Body Problem and My
Yeah.
Octopus. Okay. I will check both those out and hopefully by the next time
Yeah,
we chat we can
we can
discuss
pick it
that
up. Well,
stuff.
I've got a whole list from you.
That's typical me, you know, over exaggerate, but also promote the hell out of what needs to be promoted, what needs more ears
Exactly.
and listenership to help, literally, my ultimate goal, I could leave this earth a happy man. Not anytime soon. We got a
Yeah, hang around. Got a lot to do.
a lot to do here, but if I could know that I was one of the main reasons that, the next wave genre, iteration of rock, because there's a lot of iterations going on right now.
Yeah,
Even if it's short lived like punk and grunge, but that it still has like a timeless impact, you know,
yeah,
just to bring about the next movement. Because I feel like everything that's going on in the world, like and I know this from talking to the bands that there's a lot of outcry
mm,
uh, all over the world with music and musicians that have stuff to say in reaction to what's been going on the last like 30 some years that we're at now
yeah,
in
yeah,
response and build up and I feel that it's screaming. It's like a powder keg that's ready to explode, with all these various different genres of
Yeah.
the return and resurgence of rock.
Yeah, and that really reminds me of what was coming up through the 80s and the 90s, you know.
Exactly.
There was this huge just underground kind of thing
Exactly.
that suddenly
Exactly.
exploded, you know. I mean, and
Exactly.
well, I guess artistically and musically, everything changed. It just like, you know,
Yeah, and I talked about this with another band I did a while ago. It hasn't been posted yet, but that I think streaming and like downloading when it initially hit back in like the 2000s, and it was a major blow to like big artists with like that were against like Napster and torrents and stuff like that for downloading music for free. But then like as it evolved, you got apps like Spotify, Bandcamp, Amazon Music, Pandora, all these like different, outlets where you could, again, science fiction, subscribe, for a price, and you get access to all this music. And my personal belief is that one of the reasons, like now in particular, is where like we're finally at the point where like everything's getting ready to just like burst to like bubbling to the top, is that I think it took a good like 20, 25 years for the streaming in terms of music to reset with streaming being a thing. And I think now we're kind of at that point where we've reset and we're kind of like back to, ground zero for a new era and explosion of music and rock and roll to come bubbling to the surface. And it's already starting to happen with bands like Wet Leg, Full Flower Moon Band, another one from Australia, Emil and the Sniffers.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, you know, I see like a big, big thing on the rise. So me, I'm more hopeful than anything that, we are witnessing, we're living in the age where like the next movement is literally on the surface of exploding.
oh, let's watch that space.
Yeah. And I think that's a good place to end, you know, to be continued.
Yeah,
Hopefully by when this is posted and we chat next, that movement will be off to a flourishing start. Uh,
definitely,
yeah.
Sam. Yeah, well, and yeah, let's have another chat sometime. I could tell you about Jimi Hendrix's flat in London that I went to see a while ago.
Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes.
So
Awesome,
watch
awesome.
this space.
Definitely, definitely. Awesome. Well, John, it has been a true, true pleasure having you on the
Absolutely, me
show.
too. Yeah,
It was amazing chat. I cannot wait to have you come take another dive into,
into the fishbowl.
into the fishbowl head first.
Excellent. Let's
Excellent.
do it.
And I hope the temperature was just right.
Yeah, no, absolutely perfect.
Excellent, excellent. Well, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and onward and upward.
Yeah, onwards and upwards.
As we
Great.
say in the fishbowl, let's keep swimming upstream.
Sounds good, Sam. Nice to meet you.
You
See you
too.
soon.
You too. Take care. Hey there, all my fishes in the sea. Thanks for tuning into today's episode and for being a subscriber. Your continued listenership and support means the most and helps keep the show growing to deeper and deeper depths. I want to let all my guppies in the sea know the Fishbowl has now officially partnered with FastCustomShirts.com, where they're now selling custom Fishbowl t-shirts under their podcast and website section. Every t-shirt that's purchased helps and goes a long way to keep the show growing to deeper and deeper and higher depths. I also now have custom hats, beanies, handbags, pens, mouse pads, everything to make you look like the coolest looking fish in the sea, which you can DM me directly on Instagram at the Fisch Bowl 88 or on Facebook at just the Fisch Bowl, or you can friend request me, Sam Fish, directly and get yours today. Your continued listenership and support again means the most. It's the most important fishes that flock together. We are a school of fish and we keep the unit going. Let's all keep swimming upstream.